Hello people, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. My topic for today is history of Kenya's education system, and I'll take you through the way the education system from the colonial times up to now, and it goes like this. Historical records, not only from the travels of Johann Ludwig Kraft and Johannes Rebmann, reveal that Kenyans had access to education as far back as 1728 with a Swahili manuscript, Utendi wa Tambuka, that is, Book of Heraclius, attesting to the fact. So, Kenyans had access to education in 1728. That is before we were colonized by the British, and the CMS missionaries interacted with the locals in the coastal town of Mombasa and set up one of the earliest mission schools in the country at Rabai in 1846. So the missionaries set up missionary schools in Mombasa at Rabai in 1846, so that Africans would be able to read and write. And before independence, elementary education was based on the colonial system of education. So colonialists introduced to us their system of education, and this education was used up to the time Kenya attained her independence in the year 1963. And in 1967, Kenya with Uganda and Tanzania formed the East African Community, and they adopted a single system of education, that is 7-4-2-3. That is 7 years of primary education, 4 years of lower secondary education, 2 years of upper secondary education, and 3 to 5 years of university education. And with the collapse of the East African Community in 1977, Kenya continued with the same system of education until 1985, when the 844 system was introduced. So, in 1967, Kenya with Uganda and Tanzania, they had the 7-4-3 system of education, and the way it was formed, it was like this. It was East African primary education. There was the East African certificate education, and East Africa advanced certificate of education. That was what was there up to the time that the East African Community collapsed in 1977, and Kenya continued with that education till 1985. The same way before the East African Community collapse was Kenya primary education, and there's Kenya certificate education and Kenya advanced certificate of education. It was there until 1985, and Uganda has maintained this kind of education till today, and the reason why 7-4-3 was abandoned in 1985 is because President Moi thought that it would cater for those that dropped out of school, and that people would be in the same level. Moi did not pass through this kind of education, and so he introduced 8-4 system to favor those that were not educated. And so in the 8-4-4 system of education, there's 8 years of primary education, there's 4 years of secondary education, and 4 years of university education. And at the end of the 8 years of primary education, one is to do Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, that is KCPE exams. In the end of the 4 years, one is to sit for Kenya Secondary Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, or KCSE exam. And in a nursery or pre-primary education, children aged between 3 and 6 years, they enroll for 1 or 2 years. And in the primary education, it is universal, free and compulsory, and caters for children from ages 6 to 14 years. And the main aim of primary education is to develop self-expression, self-discipline, and self-reliance. And secondary education begins at age 14 or 15, and it lasts for 4 years. And secondary education, especially in primary public education, is subsidized by the government, with the government paying tuition fees for students. So people who are in public schools, in secondary education, their fees are catered for by the government. And in 2017, Kenya for the second time introduced a new system of education, that is competency-based curriculum, or 2633, to churn out engaged, empowered and ethical citizens. 844, the problem with 844 is that it makes people to pass the exams only, and it doesn't help students to acquire skills. 844 is just to make sure that you've just passed your exams. It's just paper oriented. That's it. But the new system of education, that is 2633, students they acquire skills, and by the end of that education, students would have gotten enough skills, and they would have known what career they want to do. And this competency-based education, it goes like this. There's 2 years of pre-primary education, 6 years in primary, that is from grade 1 to 6, 3 years in junior secondary, that is from grade 7 to 9. There's 3 years in senior secondary, that is from grade 10 to 12, and 3 years in university. If you've learned something from the history of Kenya's education system, comment down below and have a good day.